Hello, everybody. I want to talk about Boris Johnson. Sorry, I'm going to talk about Boris Johnson. But before I do, I just have one request. Please stop calling him by his first name. Okay? Stop calling Boris Johnson Boris, because he's not your friend. He's not a workmate. He's not even a casual acquaintance. Okay? He's Boris Johnson, the part-time Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. I know his image makers and his PR people want you to call him by his first name, because that way you think, he's my friend, he can do no wrong. I just go, it's only Boris. Because that's really what most of the press has been doing for decades, really, letting him off the hook. So, excuse me, when I hear people say things like Boris this and Boris that, I get kind of annoyed. I want to say, oi, back it up a little bit. Who is this Boris? Yeah, are you talking about Boris Spassky, the Russian chess grandmaster? Or are you talking about Boris Pasternak, the author of Dr. Zhivago? If you're going to call Boris Johnson by his first name, then you need to preface it with a phrase like that dickhead Boris Johnson, or that bleeding hemorrhoid Boris Johnson. Don't say just Boris and leave it at that, Yeah. So, Boris Johnson, there's a man who thinks that he's the reincarnation of Winston Churchill. Well, he isn't. He's just a really bad tribute act. And people often make these really tenuous comparisons between Boris Johnson and Winston Churchill, and the comparisons begin and end with a fondness for drink and racism. That's it, really. A few years ago, there was a poll in the Daily Express. I'm surprised that paper isn't out of print, really, because it's crap. Well, a lot of them are. But it ran this poll which claimed that most British men want to go out for a pint with Boris Johnson. And I remember thinking, he'll drink you under the table. That's... but, fluff like that, what. But let's cast our minds back to around Easter time. Now, a few days before Easter, it was announced that Boris Johnson could have been discharged from, or could be discharged from hospital, because he'd been admitted to hospital after displaying the symptoms of COVID-19. And I was thinking, if it's around Easter time, they're going to start making all these, comparisons, these allusions with the resurrection. He hath risen. The sun actually stopped well short of that. I thought they were really going to run with that one, but they didn't. They said, oh, it's a Good Friday. It's like, oh, come on, man. Where's this stigmata? Anyway, Allison Pearson, a few days before Good Friday, on the 7th of April, in fact, had an article published in the Daily Telegraph, which had the headline, "We need you, Boris. Your health is the health of the nation." And that right there was an association, if you will, of the body of Boris Johnson. What a horrible thought. With the body of the state, with the body of the nation. And traditionally, the body of the monarch, the body of the sovereign, is also seen as the body of the state, because the monarch is also seen as God's representative, God's vice-regent on earth. And in his book, Discipline and Punish, Michel Foucault talks about the birth of the prison, but he spends a bit of time talking about how crimes, or rather punishments, were created to fit the crime. And these punishments were always physical in nature, which would often involve things like mutilation or indeed amputation, because the crime was seen as an offense against God, against the monarch, as well as the state. All those three things were one and the same. So when I looked at this Allison Pearson article, I cracked up. I just want to read a little bit about it, a little bit of it. How is Boris? It opens. For millions of people, that was our first thought upon waking yesterday. Really? And our last thought before we went to sleep the night before. The prospect of losing our Prime Minister was profoundly shocking. He won't die, will he? A friend texted at 11:18 p.m. My heart will break. Please, the melodrama, it's killing me. It's totally over the top, but it's making these allusions between the body of Boris Johnson and the body of the state. Now, many decades ago, not decades, centuries even, Allison Pearson would have been seen as a possible usurper, or at least acting on behalf of a usurper. And as such, she would have been hauled off to the Tower of London, where she would have awaited her execution. That's it.